Before this story ends, you will understand something about yourself, not just about North Korea. This is the kind of story people finish, then sit in silence for a moment before they do anything else. If you're already here, thank you. If this is your first time in this world, hit that subscribe button right now because we build these stories carefully, and once you see how deep one goes, you will want every single one. Now, settle in. Because you are about to live a life most people on Earth will never see from the inside. The loudspeaker cracks to life before the sun rises, and your eyes open to a ceiling stained by winter damp. You are 6 years old. You do not know this is unusual. You have never woken any other way. Your mother is already in the kitchen, if you can call it that. A single burner. A pot that is never quite full. She divides the morning rice into 3 portions with the precision of someone who has learned that being wrong by even a spoonful means someone goes to bed still hungry tonight. She doesn't rush. She has made peace with the math of scarcity. Your father folds his blanket before he speaks. He folds it with the kind of care men give to things they cannot control. He does not look at you for very long. Not because he doesn't love you, but because love, in this apartment, is a feeling that must be rationed alongside everything else. You eat standing up. Outside, you can already hear the building waking around you, the shuffle of shoes, the scrape of doors, bodies organizing themselves in response to a voice none of them chose. The broadcast fills the hallway like water fills a room. You absorb it without thinking. That is the point. You learn early that your face is a document. Neutral is safe. Curious is suspicious. Happy must be directed only at approved subjects. Your mother never teaches you this in words. She teaches it in glances. In the half-second delay before she answers any question that touches the wrong territory. In the way she steers conversation the way a driver steers around a pothole. Smooth, practiced, leaving no trace. On your walk to school you pass the apartment block across the courtyard. All the windows are lit this morning except one. Apartment 4C. The curtains are drawn. The window is dark. You think nothing of it. By evening you will. Because when you come home, a neighbor leans close to your mother and says only 4 words. The Chai family. Gone. Your mother nods once and says nothing. And in the silence between those 2 movements, you learn your first real lesson. By the time you are 14, you know things no textbook ever taught you. You know that the boy who sits in the 3rd row, the one whose father works at the distribution center, never has to wait for his ration card to be checked. You know that certain families arrive at ideological gatherings 30 minutes early, and certain families arrive right on time, and certain families are watched to see which one they choose. You know that enthusiasm, performed correctly, is a form of armor. Your teacher, Comrade Han, notices you before you notice her noticing. You are organized. You memorize quickly. When she asks for volunteers to lead morning recitation, your hand is up before other students have finished hearing the question. Not because you are eager. Because you have already calculated that visible reliability is safer than invisible mediocrity. She assigns you responsibilities. Recording attendance. Leading drills. Monitoring which classmates arrive late and which ones linger in conversation too long. You tell yourself it is nothing. Just administration. Then one afternoon, Comrade Han places a small sheet of paper on your desk. She says nothing. She simply lays it there and walks away. The paper asks you to note which students showed insufficient enthusiasm during the morning ceremony. You stare at it for a long time. There is a boy, Park, who sat beside you in 3rd grade. He used to share his crackers when no one was looking. He is not a bad person. He is just tired today. His mother has been sick. His face this morning was not bright enough. His name is at the top of your mind. Your pen sits at the top of the page. And you feel something you do not have a word for yet, a warmth inside your chest from being trusted with this, and a cold weight in your stomach from understanding what that trust is asking of you. You write something. You fold the paper. You slide it back. You do not let yourself think about Park for the rest of the afternoon. But you think about him all night. If this story is already pulling you in, and I think it is, share it with one person tonight. Not because I'm asking for numbers. Because this kind of story deserves to be seen by people who think. The subscribe button is right there. It costs you nothing. And it means stories like this keep getting made. Now, back to your life. Adulthood arrives not with celebration but with a work assignment slip. You report to a state distribution office in the gray hours of a Tuesday morning, wearing shoes you have resoled twice. The floor is concrete. The fluorescent light flickers every few minutes, a slow mechanical stutter that will mark every afternoon of your working life here. The walls carry slogans you stopped reading years ago, though you have never stopped performing the act of reading them when a supervisor passes. Your job is bureaucratic. Records. Tallies. Cross-references. Quotas tracked, shortfalls noted, reports filed in triplicate because even paperwork must demonstrate loyalty through repetition. You are good at it. Not because the work inspires you, but because competence is the quietest, safest form of visibility. You arrive before required. You finish before expected. You ask questions that sound like deference but are actually intelligence gathering. Within 3 months, your supervisor notes your reliability. Within 6, your family's ration allocation is quietly adjusted upward. Your mother notices the difference before she says anything. One evening she places a slightly fuller bowl in front of you, and her hands do not tremble the way they used to when she counted the portions. That is the moment the math of your bargain becomes personal. That bowl. Those steady hands. Coworkers begin to behave differently around you. Not hostilely. Just carefully. There is a distinction and you understand it. The jokes change when you enter a room, not because you have complained but because you have been elevated, and elevation in this world carries surveillance as a natural gravity. A coworker named Ree, older, gray at the temples, makes conversation with you one afternoon while filling out forms. He speaks with the ease of a man who has decided he has nothing left to strategically protect. He says, "The system feeds the hand it uses." You almost ask him to explain. But something in his eyes says he already has. You are invited to a political reliability training seminar. The invitation is not optional. You attend. At the front of the room, leading the first session, is the same official you remember seeing near apartment 4C the night the Chai family disappeared. You recognize his shoes. And you do not flinch. Because by now you know that the ability to recognize something dangerous and show nothing is itself a survival skill. The training is not loud. That is what surprises you most. You expected slogans, fervor, urgency. Instead, there are calm men in clean suits explaining practical systems. How reporting channels function. How neighborhood observation records are compiled. How behavioral patterns, tracked quietly over months, become the basis for decisions that are never explained to the people they affect. The language is professional. Even reasonable. Stability, they say, depends on ordinary people doing things that feel uncomfortable precisely because those things are necessary. Silence, they explain, can itself be a form of disloyalty. Mercy, when extended to the wrong people, becomes a structural risk. You sit with these ideas for days afterward. Not because you believe them entirely, but because they are persuasive from the inside. Because they are wrapped in the vocabulary of protection. Your family, your community, order, the future. And the future, in this country, is always invoked when they need something from you today. Your life improves again. Your family receives a housing reclassification. The new apartment has thicker walls. A window that faces south. A kitchen with a second burner. Your father, who has not slept well in years, sleeps differently in this room. Not peacefully, but with less vigilance, which here amounts to the same thing. Neighbors greet you with a half-second more deference than before. Lines move slightly faster when you are present. Problems that once required persistent effort begin resolving themselves at the suggestion of your name. You tell yourself this is what safety looks like. You tell yourself your family deserves this. Then, on an ordinary morning, you arrive at the office to find Ree's desk empty. Clang. Drawers open. Personal items gone. No one mentions it. No one looks in the direction of his desk for longer than necessary. The collective decision to not acknowledge his absence is itself a form of acknowledgement. Everyone knows, everyone has chosen to unknow it, and the act of forgetting is practiced with the focus of people who understand survival. You remember what Ree told you. The system feeds the hand it uses. You sit at your desk. You open your files. You begin to understand the second half of that sentence. The part Ree never said aloud, the part that goes, and discards the hand when it has finished eating. This is the peak. You are 26 years old, and for the first time in your life, you hold something that functions like power. Your role now includes home visits, compliance reviews, local distribution oversight. You carry a clipboard and a designation and the particular silence that forms around someone the system has decided to trust. You walk into rooms and conversations stop. You enter households and faces rearrange themselves into expressions of greeting that are really expressions of fear. You know the difference. You have been making that face your whole life. The work is not dramatic. It is administrative. You cross-reference household records. You note inconsistencies between declared incomes and observed living conditions. You ask questions you already know the answers to, because confirming what you know is the point, not discovering what you don't. People offer you tea. You always accept. Not because you are thirsty, but because refusal implies judgment, and judgment implies you have something to report. and the anxiety this creates in a host tells you things about their household that no document could. Your mother eats full meals now. Your father's cough has not worsened. Your sister's school assignment is to a good facility, where good assignments lead to good work designations, where good designations lead to lives with thicker walls and south-facing windows. The chain of consequence is clear. You are its first link. And so you keep walking into rooms. And rooms keep rearranging themselves. Until one Tuesday afternoon you step into a ground-floor apartment in Sector 7, and the room you enter does not rearrange fast enough, and you see what you see before anyone can hide it. A child. 8 years old, maybe 9. Girl. Thin in the way that is nutritional, not genetic. And in her small hands, half hidden beneath the hem of her jacket, a piece of foreign packaging. A crinkle of something bright. A color that does not exist in any state-approved material. She does not know what it means for you to see it. Her mother sees your eyes land on it, and in the next half-second that woman's face does something that has no name. It is not a plea because pleading is too dangerous. It is something smaller and more devastating. An acknowledgement. An offering of pure helplessness. You look down at your clipboard. The file is open. The pen is in your hand. And you are now the one responsible for deciding what happens next. You stand very still. The apartment smells like damp wool and boiled cabbage and the specific kind of quiet that exists only when a family is trying not to breathe loudly in front of someone with authority. The father is at the table. He does not speak. He does not look at you directly. He has understood, in the way all people understand things in this country, silently, instinctively, that the wrong word is worse than no word. The child still holds the packaging. Her knuckles are thin. Her eyes are on you. And you think, against your discipline, against everything you have trained yourself not to do, you think of your own kitchen. The second burner. The fuller bowl. The way your mother's hands stopped shaking when the food improved. You think, this kitchen does not have a second burner. You think, this child's hands have her mother's hands from 7 years ago. You think about Park, from 3rd grade, the boy who shared crackers, and you wonder if it was your note that changed his family's classification. You never confirmed it. You chose not to confirm it. That choosing not to know is its own kind of answer. The pen is still in your hand. How many cruel things you think become normal simply because they are called procedure? You leave the file incomplete. You tell the family you will return when the documentation is finalized. You say this in the calm, professional voice the training gave you. The mother closes her eyes for 1 second, not in relief, but in the desperate suspension of judgment that is the closest thing to hope she can afford. You walk back to the office. Your supervisor looks up when you sit down. The Sector 7 file, he says. Not a question. Still open, you say. Pending verification. He nods once, slowly. The kind of nod that means he heard something in your answer that you may not have intended to give him. Then he reaches into a drawer. He places a second folder on your desk. He does not explain it. He does not need to. You open it. Inside is a record of your own family. Your mother's ration classification. Your father's health file. Your sister's school assignment. Each one annotated. Each one conditional. Each one signed at the bottom by a name you recognize. Your own. Your supervisor does not shout. That is the most frightening thing about this moment. His voice is the same temperature it always is. Measured. Informational. He speaks about your mother's ration category the way an administrator speaks about line items in a budget, with the practiced neutrality of someone who understands that the removal of emotion from a threat makes the threat considerably more effective. He explains consequences. Not as a warning. As a briefing. He reminds you how many doors the system controls that you have been walking through as if they were opened by accident. They were never opened by accident. He doesn't say that. He doesn't have to. You sit across from him and you feel something you do not have a clean word for. Not fear. Fear is too simple. This is trapped rage. The specific rage that comes from understanding that your love for your family is the mechanism being used to make you harm someone else's family. The system didn't take your compassion from you. It found a use for it. It turned the most human thing you have into a lever. You go home. The loudspeaker is doing what it always does. The streets are doing what they always do. Your mother has made dinner. Your sister is at the table. Your father sits in the chair by the window, the one that faces south, the window you earned. You look at the window for a long time. Then you pull the Sector 7 file. The child's face returns to you before you have even opened the folder. You don't need the photograph. You remember the knuckles. The packaging. The way her mother closed her eyes for exactly 1 second. In the morning you walk back to Sector 7. You need to know they are still there. They are not. The apartment is dark. No movement. No sound. You stand in the hallway for 3 minutes doing nothing, which is the most honest thing you have done in years. Then a light comes on inside. The door opens. The father steps out, sees you and goes very still. They came home. But someone else is in the building now. You can feel it before you see it, a stillness in the wrong corner of the hallway, a presence that has learned to take up as little space as possible. Someone is watching. Not you. Watching them. And now watching you watch them. You make your move on a Wednesday. It is not heroic. Do not mistake it for heroism. What you do is small and frightened and human, which is the only kind of resistance available inside a system that has spent decades collapsing the distance between small resistance and enormous consequence. You alter the file. Not dramatically. You adjust the classification of the item. The foreign packaging becomes a discarded piece of trade material, technically authorized under a provision so rarely invoked that most officers forget it exists. You change 2 words. You redate 1 entry. You file it under a category that goes to a different desk in a different building, where a different officer will notice it months from now or possibly never. It takes 4 minutes. Your hands are steady. That surprises you. The office says nothing. Your supervisor appears unconcerned. He is working through his own stack of files. He does not look up when you submit the report. You walk back to your desk and sit down and your body believes, for approximately 40 minutes, that you have gotten away with something. Dinner is calm. Your mother has made a dish she saves for occasions and she says it is not an occasion, she was just in the mood, but you know her moods and this is not one of them. She noticed something shifted in you and she is responding to it in the language she has always used, the language of food and quiet, and an extra portion she slides toward your bowl without comment. You sleep. In the morning the audit team arrives. 11 people. Official designation on their folders. They set up at a long table in the central hall and begin pulling records. Not all records. Specific records. The kind of specificity that means someone made a list before they came. You watch from your desk. You keep your face neutral. It is the most practiced thing about you. Then one of the auditors, young, economical in movement, the kind of person trained to reveal nothing, sets a folder on the table. Your Sector 7 file. Beside it, a second version. A corrected version. You did not write the corrected version. Which means someone else did. Which means someone was watching your file before you changed it and changed it back after, and has now placed both versions side by side on a table where everyone in the room can see them. You breathe. You keep breathing. The questioning room has no windows. This is deliberate. You understand design now in a way you did not before your training. Windowless rooms change the body's sense of time. Time becomes elastic. Long, heavy. The kind of long that presses against you from all sides and makes you want to end it by saying something, anything, just to shorten it. The men across the table are not aggressive. That is the second most frightening thing, after the calmness of your supervisor. They are polite. Organized. They ask questions in the kind of sequence that reveals they already have the answers. They are not asking to discover, they are asking to observe how you perform under observation. Every hesitation is a data point. Every consistent answer is cross-referenced against a prior record they are holding just out of your eye line. They mention park. That is when you understand. Not the park from 3rd grade. But the name lands in your chest like cold water because it means they have gone back further than you anticipated. They have the note. They may have everything. Your career, viewed from the outside, is a sequence of choices that all point in one direction, and that direction is not sympathetic. You wanted to survive. You did what survival required. And in doing that, over and over, for years, you became the thing your younger self most feared waking up to. Not a villain. Something more ordinary and more devastating than that. A participant. Someone who did not invent the system, did not design the cruelty, did not enjoy the harm, but who kept the machinery running with their punctuality and their competence and their carefully neutral face. You cannot call yourself a victim. The child in Sector 7 was a victim. The Chai family from Apartment 4C was a victim. Ree, who warned you with one sentence and disappeared the next morning, was a victim. You were the mechanism. The men across the table stop asking questions. There is a pause. Then the senior officer slides a form toward you. He explains in the same calm voice that if you sign it, reaffirm your loyalty and correct the record once more, this time officially, your position will be maintained. Your family's classifications will remain unchanged. The door, he implies, is still open. You sit with the form for a long time. The pen is in your hand. Again. Always the pen. Always this choice, dressed in slightly different clothes, returning with the patience of something that knows you will eventually have to look at it directly. You think about the beginning. The ceiling stained by winter damp. Your mother and her 3 portions. Your father folding his blanket with the care of a man managing what he cannot control. The window in apartment 4C, dark before sunrise, dark when you came home, never lit again. You think about what you became between that ceiling and this table. Not all at once. Never all at once. A note here. A file there. A classification adjusted. A name recorded. A family's fate nudged in a direction you told yourself you had no choice about. One compromise small enough to hold in one hand, then another, until the weight was distributed across so many decisions that no single one felt like the one. That is how it works. The system does not ask for your soul in a single transaction. It rents it from you incrementally in exchange for a second burner and a south-facing window and a bowl your mother doesn't have to ration. And by the time you understand the total cost, you have already paid most of it. You set the pen down. You do not sign. What follows is not freedom. You understand that. The door does not fly open. No music plays. Your family's classifications will shift. Your position will contract. The south-facing window may, in time, become someone else's window. But you will not send another family into a dark apartment. You will not write another name. When you come home that evening, your mother looks at your face and she knows. Not the details, but the shape of the thing. She has always been able to read you. She taught you to keep a neutral expression after all, which means she has always known when you couldn't maintain it. She puts the kettle on. She says nothing. You sit in the same cold room where you first learned what silence cost. The loudspeaker comes on at dawn as it always does, as it always will. But now you hear it differently. It is not background. It is not routine. It is a question, asked every morning to everyone in the building at once. Will fear get to define you today? For a long time your answer was yes. Today, for the first time, it is not. You wanted safety. The system gave it to you, right up until the day it asked you to become someone you could no longer live with. The story is over. But the question it leaves behind is not. Every system, every institution, every workplace, every community, has a version of that pen in that form and that choice between comfort and conscience. Most people never face it as starkly as you just did. But most people face a version of it. If this story made you feel something, share it. Not for us. Because the person you share it with will sit with that final question longer than they expected to. Subscribe if you want more stories built this carefully. Like if this one earned it. And if you have a thought about where you would have set the pen down, drop it in the comments. That conversation is worth having. See you in the next life.